Welcome to this episode of Truth on Wheels. I am Don Blackwell. I am the director of the Gospel Broadcasting Network. I'm coming to you today in a pretty informal way. I'm in my home office. I am filming on my iPhone on my Rode clip-on mic, but I wanted to talk to you specifically today because today is the 6th anniversary of the date that I flipped a four-wheeler, which was May the 6th, 2019. And it has left me as a paraplegic. And of course, it has forever changed my life. I deal with pain every day. Everything takes me longer. Many things are just not as simple as they used to be. Sherry and I grieve for what we were, what could have been. And over the last several years, we have learned a lot about grief and pain. In fact, recently I was asked to speak on the topic, finding your way in the life's darkest hours, finding your way in life's darkest hours. And I want to tell you 6 points that have helped me and that can maybe help you. But before I do that, I want to tell you about something that has just happened to me. I have applied for several studies relating to spinal cord procedures, and I got a call back from one of them. And they made a phone call and we talked, and then I did a Zoom meeting and I got through those first two things. And now they have scheduled me for a third process in which they want me to come on May the 19th in person for a physical examination. And so on May the 19th, I'm going to Cincinnati, Ohio, and they're going to see if I am a candidate for an implant that could result in me being able to stand and have some leg movement, and possibly, they said, even being able to walk a little bit with the walker. And so please pray for me with regard to that. Okay, I was asked recently to talk about the topic, finding your way in life's darkest hours. I want to suggest 6 things to help you through in the darkest hours of life. Number 1, don't let your grief stop you. You got to keep moving forward. One thing that I have learned is you can't stop. God uses broken people. I think about David. David had all kinds of family issues. Think about Rahab. She was a prostitute. Naomi was a widow. She had lost her children. Joseph was abused by his brothers. He'd been sold into slavery. Abraham was old. Paul was a persecutor of God's people. He killed Christians. I could go on with biblical examples, but what we cannot allow ourselves to do is to become like the one-talent man who became afraid and went and hid his talent in the ground. What I have to remember is, as long as I'm on this earth, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Of course, that's Philippians 1:21. And verse 23, Paul said, I'm hard-pressed between two, having the desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. But he said, while I'm here, I'm going to do all I can for you and for the church. For me to live is Christ. The second thing we've got to do is never stop praying. Friends, if you want to get through the darkest hours, never stop praying. James 5:16 says, the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Now, if you look this up in the Greek lexicon, it says about this word, this phrase, effective, fervent, it means to put one's capabilities into operation. The New King James says effective, fervent. It means to be active. The ESV says the prayer of a righteous person has great power. Now listen how it translates this phrase, as it is working. What does that mean? You've got to be engaged. You've got to be doing it. You have to be praying. Now, you might be thinking, well, I've been praying, but God's not answering my prayers. I've thought that same thing. But one thing that has helped me is 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 7. The Apostle Paul said this, and lest I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of revelations, that is, I think he's saying he has miraculous abilities. He's got a lot of them, and it could cause him to be exalted. He said, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. And so he has this, we don't know what the thorn in the flesh is. Some people think a physical ailment of some sort, but whatever it was, he calls it a messenger of Satan. And he says, concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. And so Paul prayed repeatedly that the Lord take this away. But the answer that God gave him was no. Why? He said, lest I should be exalted above measure. And so the Lord said, it's actually best for you that I not do this. You know, I think about that. Maybe when I'm praying for one thing, it's in my best interest or the best interest of the Lord's kingdom that prayer not be answered. Here's a third thing, to press on through the darkest hours. I've said this before. If you've heard my lessons, you've probably heard me say it, but count your many blessings. We sing the song, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. I've said it many times before. When I stop counting my bruises and I count my blessings, it changes my feelings. I've shared the story in many lessons about going and talking to a friend that he had an accident. In fact, he was shot, and it left him as a paraplegic. And on one occasion, when I was visiting him, he said, I wish I were like you. And I said, what do you mean you wish you were like me? And he said, you can use your hands. You can drive. You can transfer yourself from your wheelchair to another seat or chair. And I went out of there that night rolling in my wheelchair, and I thought to myself, I can use my hands. What an incredible thing. I had not really stopped to count that blessing. When I count my blessings and not my bruises, it helps get me through the dark hours. Number 4, this may be the most important. Remember why you are here. Remember why I'm here. I'm going to read you a quote from a book called Let This Cup Pass. It was written by Jane McWhorter. She says, we are here to prepare ourselves for life after death. It doesn't really matter whether we live 50 years or 100. Neither does it matter whether those years are carefree or filled with sorrow. The only consideration of lasting importance is where we spend eternity. You see, sometimes we get to thinking, I'm so unhappy because I don't have this, or I miss that, and it depresses me and I become miserable. But I need to remember John 9:4. Jesus said, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. That's why I'm here. I've got to use my time to do the will of the Father. If I can stay focused on the reason that God put me here in the first place, it helps get me through the dark times. Number 5, Christianity makes all the difference. I've told this story, you may have heard it, but one day when I was in the hospital, in fact, it was Father's Day of 2019, my daughter Lauren and her husband Casey came to visit me. And when they left, I was very sad. You know, the empty feeling when the family leaves. And anyway, my iPhone began to beep saying that it had sent me a memory. The iPhone would take pictures in my phone and it would put them to music and create a little video. It called it a memory. And I opened it and I started watching it. And it was a video of a family vacation that we had taken years ago when the kids were younger, and we'd gone to Disney World. And I was standing there with my arms around them, and when I saw it, it just crushed me. And I thought, I'm never going to do that again. And I rolled over in the hospital bed, and I pulled the covers over me, and I was trying to keep Sherry, she was sitting in the chair next to the bed, I was trying to keep her from seeing me crying because I knew it would just hurt her more. And I thought, I don't know how I can live like this. And then as I was laying there, I thought to myself, I'm a Christian. This is all temporary, and I'm going to die and go to heaven. And then I started thinking about the other people who were in the hospital with me. And then I thought, that's misery. Can you imagine living a life as a paraplegic or quadriplegic and dying and being lost? Or being a healthy person and dying and being lost? And it started to put things in perspective for me, and that is, I have a mission. I want to reach people with the gospel. Whether I'm a 1-talent man, a 2-talent man, a 5-talent man, or a 2-talent man who used to be a 4-talent or 5-talent man, whatever it is, I've got to use what I have to glorify the Lord and reach people with the gospel. How do I get through the darkest hours of life? Here's the final thought. Remember that it's not going to last very long. It's not going to last that long. James 4 and verse 14, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and vanishes away. My dad has said something many, many times over the years that has stuck with me, and that is, he says, I can do anything for a day. I can do anything for a day. What's he mean? He says, I can endure anything no matter how bad if I take it one day at a time. Psalm 30 and verse 5 says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.